The gleaming tomb. Dusty Rivers moved with a soldier's grace that belied the gravity of his post. The rustle of his meticulously maintained uniform accompanied his measured pace before the tomb. Marble surfaces reflected the morning light, testimony to a care extending beyond mere duty. Before the daily influx, he personally purged every trace of wind-blown debris from the monument, a ritual, a silent dialogue with the fallen heroes beneath. He paused, his gaze encompassing the manicured expanse. Usually, the order brought him a sense of peace, the understated grandeur a balm. Yet, today, his attention snagged on the Apache helicopter, a static tribute to airborne valor. Its olive paint, dull by grime, and the steel rotors seemed to droop against the brilliant autumn sky. It deserved better than neglect. Dusty possessed an innate understanding of machines, of the delicate interplay of force and finesse. His previous years spent under the hoods of cars were a secret he closely guarded. This Apache, in its neglected state, felt like a dishonor to the ingenuity it represented. A near-silent exhalation escaped him. He turned toward the maintenance shed by the visitors' center. Within, amidst the mundane mowers and trimmers, lay his clandestine collection, an extravagant assortment of cleaning agents. Polishes, cloths of the finest weave, specialized solvents, each meticulously selected. He gathered his armaments, a spark igniting in his normally tranquil eyes. Regulations existed, of course. This wasn't part of his assigned tasks. But certain imperatives transcended protocol, some things were simply a matter of honoring sacrifice. He loaded his cash onto a small utility cart, its wheels whispering on the gravel. The helicopter loomed, its grimy shell calling out. Parking the cart a respectful distance away, he assessed the challenge. It promised to be a long day of labor. A dusty relic. Dusty knelt beside the Apache, the sun's glare baking his neck. Sweat traced paths down his spine, unnoticed as his gaze fixed on the helicopter's nose. The machine gun, normally a symbol of deadly precision, was now entombed in desert grime. It seemed forsaken, a betrayal of its purpose, its power diminished. He ran a gloved hand along the barrel, the rush of embedded sand audible even over the rising wind. "Been a while, hasn't it?" he murmured, the words swallowed by the vastness. He could almost feel the weapon shuddering with dormant energy. He grabbed his wrench from the toolbox, its polished surface reflecting the harsh light. With familiar motions, he began unfastening the bolts that held the gun in place. Each click resonated in the stillness. The metal offered initial resistance before relenting, and soon the machine gun was detached. Dusty lifted it, the weight of familiar comfort. He carried it to his makeshift workstation, atop stretched near the hangar's meager shade, and lowered it carefully. His tools were neatly arranged, brushes of varying textures, solvent in a dented can, soft cloths, and miniature screwdrivers nestled in a weathered leather pouch. He selected a fine-bristled brush and attacked the largest deposits of dirt, a low hum escaping his lips. The sound was automatic, a method of concentration, a fragile melody against the desert's austere symphony. He began with the breech, meticulously working the brush into the tightest corners, coaxing out the ingrained filth. This wasn't mere maintenance, it was a communion, an act of reverence. Methodically, he disassembled the machine gun, each component arranged with care upon the top. Accusation. Hawkeye whistled, kicking up dust as he strode toward the Apache. The Thompson family was waiting by the Humvee, eyes wide with anticipation. He couldn't wait to show off the bird. Mr. Thompson was a Vietnam vet, a door gunner, and Hawkeye knew this was going to be the highlight of their visit. He rounded the nose of the helicopter, his smile faltering. Something wasn't right. A glint of metal caught his eye. Then he saw it. Dusty, squatting beside the gun mount, a scattering of parts laid out on a dirty canvas. The .50 caliber machine gun, usually a symbol of lethal readiness, was in pieces. Dusty! Hawkeye roared, the sound echoing across the tarmac. He felt a surge of anger, hot and immediate. What in God's name are you doing? Dusty jumped, nearly dropping a handful of springs. His face went pale beneath the grime. Hawkeye! I didn't hear you coming. He scrambled to his feet, wiping his hands on his already filthy fatigues. I was just what, Rivers? Just dismantling a perfectly good machine gun? Hawkeye's voice dripped with disbelief. He pointed at the scattered components. That's a critical piece of equipment. You can't just take it apart whenever you feel like it. Dusty shuffled his feet, avoiding eye contact. It's been looking a little rough, sir. I thought I'd give it a good cleaning. Some of the mechanisms were sticking. He gestured weakly at the oily rags beside him. I figured, a little TLC. TLC. Hawkeye repeated, his voice rising again. The Thompsons were staring now, their excited expressions replaced with concern. He lowered his voice with effort. That gun is inspected and maintained by ordnance specialists. It's not your place to go tinkering with it. He stepped closer, his gaze fixed on Dusty. Did anyone authorize this, Rivers? Dusty's Adam's apple bobbed nervously. No, sir. I just thought. I mean, no one seems to care about this bird anymore. She deserves better. Frozen in time. Dusty Rivers froze, the oily rag clutched in his hand like a lifeline. The Apache, a dark behemoth in the pre-dawn gloom, seemed to shrink under Hawkeye's intense glare. He swallowed, the metallic tang of fear coating his tongue. Just cleaning, sir. The words felt flimsy, pathetic even to his own ears. Hawkeye advanced, the gravel crunching under his boots, a sound amplified in the stillness. His eyes, usually crinkled with amusement, were hard chips of flint. Cleaning. At this hour? With what? Trying to dismantle a .50 cal with a rag. Dusty fumbled, the rag slipping from his sweaty palm. No, sir. Of course not, sir. It's just. This bird hasn't seen a proper scrub in weeks. Disgraceful, sir, a flying monument like this gathering dust. He gestured weakly at the Apache's underbelly, his gaze darting around, anywhere but at Hawkeye's piercing stare. Rivers, isn't it? Hawkeye circled him, a predator sizing up its prey. Dusty Rivers. That's the name they gave me. But who are you, really? What's your purpose here? The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Dusty's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. He knew he had to say something, anything, to deflect Hawkeye's suspicion, but the words caught in his throat, a jumbled mess of half-truths and outright lies. Hawkeye stopped, his gaze fixed on Dusty's left shoulder. Dusty followed his line of sight, his blood turning to ice. There, barely visible beneath the grime and wear of his fatigue jacket, was a faded patch. The colors were muted, almost indistinguishable, but the outline, the shape, was unmistakable. A look of dawning recognition spread across Hawkeye's face, chasing away the suspicion, replaced by something else entirely, something akin to shock. That patch. Hawkeye whispered, his voice raspy, like a rusty hinge protesting after years of disuse. He reached out, his fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against the worn fabric. Where did you get that? The patch's tail. Dusty Rivers fidgeted, his gaze darting between Hawkeye and the scrub brush. The silence in the hangar stretched, thick and uncomfortable, punctuated only by the metallic clang of Hawkeye setting down the brush. "That patch," Hawkeye finally said, his voice low, almost reverent. He stepped closer, his eyes glued to the faded fabric sewn onto Dusty's worn flight jacket. A close-up revealed intricate embroidery, a stylized phoenix rising from flames, encircled by a coiled rattlesnake, its fangs bared. Above, stitched in faded gold thread, were the words, "Apache Spectres." Dusty swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. "It's old," he mumbled, avoiding Hawkeye's intense stare. Hawkeye reached out, his callous fingers brushing against the patch. "Old? This is more than old, Dusty. This is legendary." He pulled his hand back as if burned. "I heard stories, back in training." Whispers. The Apache Spectres were the most daring helicopter unit in Vietnam. They flew missions no one else would touch, deep behind enemy lines. Unbelievable extractions, pinpoint strikes. They said they were ghosts, untouchable. He looked up at Dusty, his eyes wide with disbelief. They also said they were wiped out. Every last one of them, gone in 72. Ambushed in Laos. Hawkeye circled Dusty, his gaze sweeping over him, taking in the lines etched around his eyes, the quiet intensity he usually masked with folksy charm. "You were there, weren't you?" Hawkeye's voice was barely a whisper. "You flew with them." The realization hit him like a physical blow. He wasn't just looking at a liar, or even a thief. He was standing before a living legend, a ghost returned from the war. The blood drained from Hawkeye's face. He felt the weight of history pressing down on him, altering his perception of everything he thought he knew about the man before him. Confessions of a Pilot. Dusty coughed, the sound echoing awkwardly in the suddenly silent hangar. Every eye was on him. He shuffled his feet, kicking at a stray pebble on the concrete floor. "Look, it's not a big deal," he mumbled, his gaze fixed on the ground. "I just used to fly." Hawkeye took a step closer, his expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning comprehension. "Used to fly?" "Dusty, you froze solid when you saw that patch." "The Apache Spectres? That's legendary." Dusty's ears burned. He avoided Hawkeye's gaze. "Legendary is a bit strong, don't you think?" He plucked at a loose thread on his coveralls. "It was a while ago." "Another lifetime, really?" "Another lifetime where you were probably pulling off maneuvers that would make my flight instructors weep," Hawkeye countered, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "Tell me you weren't one of the Whispering Death pilots. Please tell me you were." Dusty winced. The nickname brought back a flood of memories, exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "Okay, fine," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I flew with the Spectres. A long time ago." Hawkeye whooped, startling a nearby mechanic. "This is incredible. I've read everything about them. The canyon runs, the night ops, the ghost dance maneuver. Did you ever pull that off?" Dusty's lips twitched. A faint smile played around his mouth. "Maybe," he conceded, a hint of the old confidence returning to his voice. "A few times." "A few times?" Hawkeye exclaimed, practically vibrating with excitement. "You have to tell me everything. Every dogfight, every close call. Tonight. After the work's done, you're telling me stories." Dusty hesitated for a moment longer, then the ghost of a wider smile appeared. Alright, he chuckled, the sound genuine for the first time since the incident with the patch. I guess I can tell you a few stories. But you have to promise not to interrupt. And don't expect any heroism, most of the time, I was just trying not to get shot down. Whispers of war. Dusty's hands trembled slightly as he stirred his coffee, the spoon clinking softly against the ceramic. They called us the Apache Spectres, he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. Reconnaissance, close air support, extraction, you name it, we did it. Hawkeye leaned forward, elbows on the worn table. The mess hall was nearly empty, the clatter of breakfast service long gone. Spectres, huh? Sounds intense. Dusty nodded, a flicker of something dark passing across his eyes. Intense is one word for it. I remember this one time, we had a pilot down, deep behind enemy lines. SAM site active, ground troops swarming, it was a suicide mission, plain and simple. He paused, taking a shaky breath. But we went in anyway. 2 Apaches, screaming in low and fast, guns blazing, drawing fire away from the downed pilot. I remember the heat, Hawkeye, the smell of burning fuel, the tracers ripping past my canopy like angry hornets. Hawkeye pictured it all, the impossible angles, the sheer audacity of the maneuver. He could almost feel the G-force, the bone-jarring vibrations, the adrenaline surging through his veins. The Apache, Dusty continued, his voice gaining strength, it's a beast. A flying tank. But it's also incredibly precise. You gotta know every inch of that bird, every twitch, every groan. You're dancing on the edge of a knife, balancing power and control. One wrong move, and you're scrap metal. He gestured with his hands, shaping the Apache in the air. We used the terrain to our advantage, hugging the valleys, popping up to deliver a payload of hurt, then disappearing back into the shadows. We got him out, Hawkeye. We actually got him out. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Against all odds. Hawkeye was silent for a long moment, the weight of Dusty's words settling upon him. He saw more than just a nervous mechanic in front of him. He saw a warrior, etched with the scars of battles fought and won. The silence stretched, thick and heavy with unspoken understanding. Cleaning and connecting. Dusty swallowed, the metallic tang of fear still clinging to his tongue. Alright, Hawkeye. Let's get this beauty cleaned up. He gestured toward the M2 Browning, its heavy barrel gleaming dully under the hangar lights. First things first, safety check. Always treat it like it's loaded. His voice was surprisingly steady, a stark contrast to the stammering mess he'd been just minutes ago. Hawkeye, his earlier bravado softened, nodded. He watched intently as Dusty expertly disassembled the weapon, his movements precise and practiced. You know your way around one of these, Hawkeye observed, impressed. Dusty chuckled, a nervous tremor still present. Yeah, well. I've seen my share. He picked up a ball brush, dipping it in solvent. Gotta get the carbon out. This is where most guys mess up. They rush it. He demonstrated the proper technique, slow, deliberate strokes. You were Apache Spectres, right? Hawkeye asked, more statement than question. Dusty froze, the brush still halfway down the barrel. He didn't meet Hawkeye's gaze. Something like that. He resumed cleaning, his jaw tight. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Then, Hawkeye grabbed another rag. Alright, show me how to do this right. As they worked side by side, the tension eased. Dusty, warmed by Hawkeye's willingness to learn, opened up, sharing tips and tricks he'd picked up over the years. He told stories of grueling exercises in the Arizona desert, of the camaraderie forged in the face of adversity. Hawkeye, in turn, recounted his own experiences flying the Apache, the thrill of the chase, the responsibility of protecting those on the ground. The air filled with the scent of gun oil and solvent, punctuated by the occasional burst of laughter. With each passing moment, the bond between them solidified, forged in shared respect for the machine and a mutual understanding of the sacrifices made in its name. The M2, now gleaming like new, sat reassembled, a testament to their shared effort. A new legacy. Hawkeye grinned, ushering Dusty towards a gaggle of fresh-faced pilots buzzing around the Apache. "All right, listen up, everyone. This is Dusty Rivers. He's seen things you wouldn't believe." A nervous chuckle escaped Hawkeye. "He's here to share some of that experience." Dusty shuffled his feet, hands jammed deep in his pockets. He hadn't anticipated this. Being a mentor. He was just a tomb guard. An old one, sure, but still. "Right," he began, his voice raspy. "Hawkeye's right. Seen some things. Mostly dust and sand. And, well, a few specters." The name hung in the air, unspoken but heavy. A pilot, barely old enough to shave, piped up. "Specters, sir? Like the Apache specters? The legends?" Dusty nodded, his gaze drifting towards the distant mountains. "Legends are just stories people tell. The reality is tougher. We learn to fly by the seat of our pants, to rely on instinct and each other. That's something no training manual can teach you." Over the next few weeks, Dusty found himself drawn into their world. He spoke of wind currents, of anticipating enemy movements, of the bond between pilot and machine. He showed them subtle adjustments to their flight suits, tricks for staying cool under pressure, and shared stories, carefully edited, of his time with the specters. The young pilots soaked it up like parched earth. They peppered him with questions, eager to glean every bit of wisdom from this unassuming veteran. Dusty, in turn, found a purpose he hadn't realized he craved. He wasn't just cleaning weapons anymore, he was shaping the future. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Dusty stood beside the Apache, watching Hawkeye and the others run pre-flight checks. The rhythmic whir of the rotors filled the air. He ran a careless hand over the cool metal of the fuselage. The Apache was more than just a machine, it was a symbol, a legacy. And now, it was in good hands. He was passing the torch. A new legacy was being forged, one flight at a time.